Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on today's webinar. I'm Lee Garang. I'm the marketing assistant here in the Boston office. Today we're joined with Rick Ladd, who's with CADnet Services based in Manchester, New Hampshire, and he's going to be talking about IntelliCAD versus AutoCAD. So if you're using AutoCAD and you're looking to make the switch, this will be a good webinar for you. If you have any questions, they will be answered at the end of the webinar, and please type those into your questions box on the webinar toolbar. You can find this webinar recording after the webinar is ended at our YouTube account, which is YouTube/CARLSON Software. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Rick and he'll get started.
Hi there, welcome everyone. Can everyone see my screen now? Hopefully everyone can see my screen. I got the CARLSON 2016 with IntelliCAD running here. I have a list of topics I wanted to go through. We got about half an hour worth of time, so I'm going to try to rush through a bunch of stuff to kind of show you a whole bunch of different things in IntelliCAD 8.1 and try to alleviate some fears that people have about moving from AutoCAD or Autodesk products to the IntelliCAD platform. In the past, it's gotten some bad reviews, but I think they've really caught up, and we got pretty much everything that you can do in AutoCAD you can almost do here in IntelliCAD now. So I was just going to start off with a couple basic things. First of all, if you notice the screen, it looks just like an AutoCAD screen. We have a drawing area, we have toolbars at the top. We actually have the ribbon now. If you like the ribbon, you can turn that on and off if you don't want to use the ribbon. The drawing area, the model space and the layout tabs, properties window, command bar at the bottom, and all of our little icons across the bottom for drawing aids such as snaps, polar tracking, and so on. So one of the first things I wanted to take a look at was something called the IntelliCAD Explorer. And I always think of it as the layer dialog box. So if I just type LA, and again, same with AutoCAD is IntelliCAD. You can get to most commands many different ways. You can type the command, you can pick an icon, you can pick it from a drop-down menu, you can pick it off the ribbon, whatever is most suitable to you. And one thing that popped up, if you notice in the bottom left corner, is this thing called the autocomplete. So as I start typing a command, we'll see a list of all the commands that start with those couple letters that I started to type in. So it can help me find commands a little bit quicker. What I was looking for was the layers command, which the shortcut or the alias is known as LA. And you'll see buttons across the top. We can actually minimize this autocomplete to the commands that you want to see, just IntelliCAD commands, external commands, or turn aliases on or off so they wouldn't show up. And you can even get into system variables and so on. So I have the LA command for layers. If I click that, it's going to load up my layer dialog box, which is known as the IntelliCAD Explorer. The IntelliCAD Explorer, when we first open it up using the layers command, looks just like our AutoCAD layer dialog box. We have our layer names, our colors, our line types, on, off, rows, and thought. We have all those same commands here in IntelliCAD, and they control the same way. We just turn the light bulb on or off, or the sun, we turn to a snowflake. A lock just locks the layer, and so on. We can create new layers using the little icon up here for new item. You can also right-click on layers over here and create a new layer. But you'll also notice in IntelliCAD Explorer, we can also create new layer states, new line types, text styles, views, layouts, blocks, and so on. So this actually is, I kind of equate it to a design center in AutoCAD, where I can see all the different components within a drawing, and I can share them from drawing to drawing just by a simple drag and drop. So I currently have this plat worksheet drawing open on my screen, and I have another drawing 1, which opened up on when I opened the program. And if I look at the layers in here, I see some different layers. For example, I'll just point out one, monument. Right, that was created in this plat drawing. If I go to the layers of drawing 1, I won't see monument in it. It's not there. Okay, so I can actually go back to plat worksheet layers, and I could take that monument layer, and I can simply just drag it to this drawing 1, and I'll now have it. It comes across with the color and line type. Of course, I picked one that was white and continuous, but it will bring all the properties with it so that I can start my drawing off with a few layers, maybe all the layers I use on an everyday basis. And then if I need certain layers, maybe some proposed layers, maybe some design layers, I can just drag and drop them from one drawing to another. And I can do that simply by selecting one at a time. I can also use the Control key to grab individuals, or I could use the Shift key and grab a whole list of them. Again, everything I drag over will go into that new drawing with the line types, with the colors all preset. In this case, I grabbed some that were already in there, so it actually made a copy of existing and a copy of final and a copy of monument. We can do that with any of these components. So I could go to the plat worksheet and I can go to the any of these components. For example, maybe I want some of these blocks brought over into drawing one, which currently has no blocks. So same idea, I can grab a block and grab a bunch of them using the Control key or the Shift key, and I can just drag those to this drawing one, and I'll now have them in that drawing. So a very easy way to transfer data and styles and objects from one drawing to another, even including layouts. So if I have a layout tab at the bottom predefined in a title block with a certain scale going to a certain printer, I don't have to reinvent that every time. I can just drag and drop it from one drawing to another, and I'll have a new layout tab at the bottom with all the settings that go with it. And I'm going to show you another way to actually perform that outside of this window. So to me, this is kind of a Design Center tool, if you remember Design Center from AutoCAD. With a couple other things I can do here, I've just dragged these blocks over to drawing one. If I didn't want the block, you may already know about the purge command, and we do have a purge command, but right inside this window, I can right-click a block and I can say delete it. Okay. Same with layers, same with line types. Anything that's in these drawings, I can right-click in here and delete them. Now, if I go to this plat worksheet drawing where I have some blocks, and these blocks are actually being used in the drawing, I have this SPT8, the triangle symbol here. I know that that's being used as a hub identifier in the drawing, hub symbol. If I were to right-click this and say delete it, it will give me a warning, and it's going to say that do you want to skip deleting this, or do you want to delete this record and all three entities that reference it in the drawing? So it's kind of like the purge command and then some. It'll actually delete the objects in the drawing as well as purge the block from the drawing. So if I were to say OK here, that block would go away and it would no longer be referenced in the drawing. So kind of a neat function there if you want to clear stuff out that you don't want. If you go to the purge command, it says this item can't be purged. You may be able to do it right here inside of IntelliCAD Explorer, just making sure that you click that button to actually delete it. And you can see inside here, we'll see all the drawings that I have open. So I can drag stuff from any drawing to any other drawing. It also gives me a total count when I minimize this left-hand side, how many layers I have, how many line types I have, how many text styles, and so on. I'm not sure if that's all that important, but it certainly is nice to be able to drag layers, text styles, layouts, blocks from drawing to drawing. And even XREFs. If I have any external references in one drawing that I want as part of another drawing, I can drag them across, drag and drop from here. While I'm at this screen as well, I'm going to point out down at the bottom under external references the ability to now XREF or attach a PDF file, which is a very neat function. We get so many drawings these days in PDF format that we may need to show them in our drawing, maybe not necessarily make them a DWG, but maybe just to show them in the background or even to possibly to trace them. So we can just do an XREF with a PDF file. That's part of the IntelliCAD application. So I'm going to minimize this now and move on to another topic. Something else that's new is down in this bottom right-hand corner, we have this little tiny blue gear-looking icon, and if I put my cursor on it, it calls it Workspaces. If we're doing different types of work, where we might turn on different toolbars, have different settings, maybe we want the properties window on or off depending on what type of work we're going to do, we can set up individual workspaces, and it could be even just for different users on the same computer. So for example, if I was going to do some survey work, I might want to turn on some toolbars. Maybe I want to turn on my Annotate Bearing and Distance toolbar, and we'll say I want it right there, and I'll turn on a survey toolbar. So scroll down here to survey and pick that one. All right. I set up my screen exactly the way I want it, and then I use the workspace command. I'm just going to type that in. Oops. If I type it in correctly, it works better. And I just save it as a name. So I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to call this my survey workspace. Now I might turn this off, and I might turn on some other ones. Maybe I'm doing some civil design work. I might turn on the roads menu, or roads toolbar, I should say. Again, maybe I want that down here, and I'll right-click and turn on another one. Maybe I want the centerline menu. All right, so some roadway stuff, and I'll put that up there. Again, I'm going to use the workspace command. So I just type that in. Again, there's the autocomplete popping up, so I can just click it there. I'll do a save as, and I'll call this civil. Now, if I want to go back to do some survey work, I don't have to remember which toolbars to turn on and off and so on. I just go to this little blue icon down here in the bottom. I click on it, and I say go back to the survey menu, and it'll load up my survey workspace with my bearing and distance annotation tools and my survey toolbar. And if I want to go back to civil, I click that again, and I can pick civil. And you can have as many of those workspaces as you want, depending on what type of work you do and how you want your screen to be laid out. So kind of a nice feature. It was built into AutoCAD for a long time, and it's now here in IntelliCAD, and works pretty well. So if you do go back and forth from module to module, it could be very handy. All right, another topic that I want to touch on quickly today is something called Annotation Text. And Annotation Text is going to control, I'm just going to turn off a couple of these toolbars, will control the height of the text when you go to print the drawing. So in our model space, we're going to pick a height for our text, and we're going to tell the model space what annotation scale we expect to print it at. So I've determined that I'm going to plot this drawing at 50 scale, and if I look down in the bottom bar here, I'm going to see an annotation scale that says 1:50 or 1 to 50. That's what my text is going to look like at 50 scale. If I plot this at 20 scale, I may want it to look a little bit different. So if I change my annotation scale down here and just change it to 1 to 20, at 20 scale, I have it this way. So I have the word building inside the building, I have the text around the outside, I have the distance on top, the bearing on the bottom. I may also plot it at another scale, maybe 40 scale. Right? At 40 scale, it's going to look this way with the word building at the bottom, bearing on top, distance on the bottom. And just to show you what happens if I go into paper space or layouts, and I look at 3 different viewports, right? Here's my building at a 40 scale viewport with the word building on the bottom. Here's my 50 scale viewport with the word building on the right-hand side, and then my 20 scale viewport actually can fit the word building inside. And you can see the building has changed based on the scale, but the text is the same size in all the viewports. To me, that's a huge thing because I'm always doing details or blow-ups of maybe a property corner. I want to see the bound, and I want to see the text that goes with it. At maybe at 10 scale or 20 scale, my original overview site is 100 scale. And you can control not only where the text goes, you can rotate it. You can do a bunch of different things with that text, showing it in different rotations, orientations, and so on, but yet it's the same size in each viewport. You can take it one level further and you can tell it, maybe I was going to do an overview of this whole site at like 200 scale or 500 scale. If I had all the text on, it would get really cluttered. I can tell it at 500 scale, don't show the text. I can actually turn it off. And I would just simply do that back here in model space. If I just pick a piece of text, I can tell it what annotation scales this piece of text would show up at. So this particular number 35 would show up at 1 to 1, 1 to 10, 20, 40, 50, and 100. If I did a viewport of 30, that text just wouldn't show up. So you control that, and you can add more in, and you can delete them if you didn't want them to show up. To me, that's one of the biggest advances that Autodesk came along with in a long time, and now IntelliCAD has it as well. It will also work with blocks. If we insert blocks into a drawing, we can make those annotative as well. So if I had a bound symbol, we'll say, or a tree or an iron pipe symbol or something like that, they can scale up and down as well. So it's pretty neat. So I showed you the example of the idea of the building with the word building moving around, but yet the text all staying the same height. I also did just a quick example of the bearing. So at 20 scale, I have the distance on top and the bearing on the bottom. 50 scale the same way, and you can actually see the word building kind of merging in there. But then at 40 scale, I should put the bearing on top and the distance on the bottom. So depending on how you want that text to look, where you want it to be, you have full control over it. And just going back to model space, this is just one piece of text. I don't actually have three pieces of text. It's just one piece of text that shows up different depending on the annotation scale at the bottom. So if you haven't looked at that, I'd certainly explore that. It can make your drawings a whole lot easier to have the text scale so it's always the same height, or maybe disappear in certain viewports and so on. All right. Continuing on, we have another command that became really helpful in IntelliCAD 8.1. So I'm just going to switch over to another drawing. I just called this the publish drawing. So you may recognize this drawing. This is, I think, example 3 in the CARLSON projects when you install your software. I just use it as an example, right? But this is a site, has some roadways, has some buildings and some contours and such. In a real world example, I might print this out many different ways, right? I might have a sheet 1 of 3 which has the contours turned off. I might have sheet 2 of 3 which has some other stuff, the buildings and such, turned off, and sheet 3 of 3 which actually has the contours on. And I'm going to print this sheet set, right, so that I can send it to my client, whatever, give it to a planning board or whoever requires this drawing. Well, currently or previously in IntelliCAD, I would have to go to sheet 1 of 3. I'd have to go up to File, Print, and print it. Then sheet 2 of 3, print it. Sheet 3 of 3, print it, which can be very cumbersome, especially if I have multiple sheets in multiple drawings. I have to go open out of the drawing and so on and so on. So it could take a little time just to print out my sheets. But now we have a publish command. So I'm just going to type in publish. And you'll notice that right now I have this checkbox that says automatically load all open drawings. So every model space and paper space or layout from all the drawings I have open currently loaded. So I'm going to say turn that off and then remove all these. All right. And what I've done is I've pre-set up a sheet list that I can go ahead and load in, so that I can set this up one time and really one time only, unless I need to make a change or add another drawing into it. And it will remember everything that was in that list. So it's going to know that all these 3 drawings should go to a PDF file. This is what I've got it set to plot to, but you would typically pick your printer maybe, or possibly PDF. It's going to know the scale, the paper size, everything that's set up as part of the page setup. And we're going to see that down here at the bottom. I'm going to the Bullzip PDF printer. It's 24 by 36. It's a scale of 1:1, whether it's color, black or white. And all those settings will be stored. And then with one command, I can basically go ahead and say publish. With one button, I can publish all 3 sheets. And these sheets can actually be spanning multiple drawings, and those drawings don't even need to be open to do this function. So I can just hit publish here, and it's going to go through and start generating my plots. And it's going to ask me what I want to call them and where I want to save them. So I'm just going to save this on my desktop here. So there's sheet 3 of 3. And I'm not going to open them. And then sheet 1 of 3 and 2 of 3. If you're sending them to a plotter, you can actually print them in the background, so you don't even see anything. It just goes out to the plotter, and you walk over to the plotter a little while later and pick up your plots. So it's kind of a neat function. If I just go to the desktop, you'll see that I have my PDFs now, sheet 3 of 3, 1 of 3, and 2 of 3. And if you have a PDF printer that will actually merge them together, you can actually print them and merge them all into one document using that publish command. So kind of a neat tool that IntelliCAD didn't have until now. Autodesk did have it as part of their sheet set manager, and they also had a publish command as well. So it was kind of a nice tool to be added to IntelliCAD to help us with these large plot sets. If it's one drawing, it's probably just as quick to hit plot as it is to publish. But when you have a 20-sheet plan set spanned over 15 different drawings, it can take a while to open those 15 drawings and print. So we can do it all with the publish command now. So I really like that command. All right. Now I talked about the idea of bringing in layouts from um, the IntelliCAD Explorer. I'm just going to jump over to that other drawing I had open before, the Plat worksheet. And I guess while I'm here on the Windows menu, we've been finding we have a lot of people coming from Land Desktop, the Autodesk product that's discontinued, migrating to CARLSON and concerned about the AutoCAD versus the IntelliCAD. One difference in IntelliCAD is we can have multiple drawings open at the same time. So on this window, I can actually see that I currently have 5 drawings open. And I can go to any one of those drawings just by simply clicking on it. I can also do a tile vertically or tile horizontally, so I can actually see all the drawings from in all these windows here. It's kind of a neat feature because it allows me to like look in one drawing. I can actually select an object here. I can right click and use my clipboard tool, do a copy or copy with base point. And then I could go down to say drawing 1 here. I can just right click and go to clipboard, and then I can, whoops, then I can do a clipboard paste to the original coordinates or paste as a block. I'll just do a paste and I'll get my tree symbol into this drawing. So I just brought one block across. I could have certainly brought that block to IntelliCAD Explorer. I could have done an insert command, copy and paste, pretty easy to do that. And sometimes you want to copy and paste more than one item. From this point, I can make any of these drawings the current drawing just simply by clicking the maximize button or double clicking on the blue bar at the top. But I'm going to maximize this, and I just have a simple plan here. I'm going to go to layout 1, right? If I go to layout 1, it's a default. It's 8.5 by 11. It's got a viewport, but I'd have to go and preset that all up and tell it what paper size and so on. On the layout tab, we have a nice tool where we can create a new layout. Right, that would be a blank one, but I can also do one from a template. And if I choose from template, I can go ahead and navigate to where I might have a drawing. And I have this IntelliCAD seminar project, and if you notice, it's looking for a template drawing, a DWT, but I can just change that to a DWG, and then I have one for a title block. So if I open that drawing through this window, it'll tell me that in that drawing I have 2 tabs. I have the model space, which we really already have. We don't want that. We want the D-size layout. And when I hit OK, it will add that D-size layout tab to my drawing. So I can now click on it. And it's just a generic title block with really nothing in it. But it also does have a viewport preset up, just a rectangular viewport. And if I were just simply to click on the viewport, my properties window gives me all the options to turn that on or off, lock or unlock. All right, so mine's currently locked, which means I can't zoom, I can't pan inside the viewport. And if I double click inside it, you'll see that IntelliCAD actually gives us this nice red box to say, hey, that's locked, you can't do anything. So I'm just going to click back outside, select the viewport, and turn that lock to off. Right, now if I click inside, I can see what's inside, and if I just double click my wheel or roll the wheel, I can zoom and see my drawing. Once I have the drawing kind of centered, about placed where I want it to go, I can double click outside, and I can use my properties window to select the viewport and then go ahead and lock it so that if it is locked, if I double click inside, you can see the red box show up again, and if I roll the wheel, the whole sheet will zoom in and out as opposed to the drawing changing orientation and or scale. If I click back outside, I can unlock it again if I want to, and then on this properties window I can set the scale. So I'd have a whole bunch of scales, whether it's 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 10, and so on. That list goes right on down for architectural as well. I can also put in a custom scale if I need a custom scale. And then I would also match, as if my text was annotative, like I showed earlier, I would make sure that my annotation scale for that viewport shows up at whatever scale I want it to be. So I might want to, sometimes you want to match it. If I made the viewport 50, I might want the text to be 50, but I can also use a 20 scale annotation with a 50 scale viewport. So we would want to control both of those, and it's very easy right here through the properties window. All right, so that's something that it's actually been around for a little while, but it's a great tool to be able to drag sheets in, and then of course I can just right-click the tab and I could rename it, give it any name I want, and I can also make a copy of it. So if I had maybe an existing versus a proposed, I could just give this one a name of sheet 2 of 2, right? And I can go back and rename the other one to sheet 1 of 2, and it's just an exact copy in this case. So normally what I would do is I would bring one layout tab in, I'd put in my project name, the date, the client name, whatever other notes I need to put in here, get that all saved, and then make a copy of it so that I can have my existing versus my proposed or my plan and profile, whatever drawing types sheets you need. So again, nice little function with right-clicking on a layout tab to bring in a new one from a template. A lot of people will question me about, well, it says from template, but if you notice, it did say if you go down here that you can change it to a drawing. So again, a nice little command there. I mentioned the PDF underlay, and I'm just going to switch over to the IntelliCAD menu because currently I'm in the CARLSON survey menu. On the CARLSON menus toolbar, there's an IntelliCAD icon, and you can also get it on the settings menu. If you go to CARLSON menus, you'll see IntelliCAD menu, and you'll see the menus will change a little bit across the top. This is kind of the vanilla IntelliCAD. None of the CARLSON features or functions are in these menus. So if I go to draw, we actually see some commands that we don't normally see in the CARLSON menu. They are still available. You can type the command, you can use an icon and so on. But if I wanted to draw freehand or draw an array or an infinite line, there's some commands on here. The donut command doesn't show up on the CARLSON menu, but if you wanted to use the old donut command from like AutoCAD had, you can do it here. And I just wanted to point out on the insert menu the idea of that PDF underlay. So it works very similar to an XREF. We can also do a DGN, so if we have a microstation drawing, or a DWF, if we get a file that's been created or plotted out to a DWF format. And as well as just a generic XREF, if I type the XREF command, I can attach XREFs and so on this way. I find many things are almost the same, almost identical. If I want to look at images, I can use the image manager, show me all the images that are attached, and I can attach new ones here, unload, reload, clip, and all those settings. So there's very, very few things that I find that we can't do in IntelliCAD that a lot of people are maybe afraid of or concerned of going from AutoCAD or Autodesk to the IntelliCAD platform. A couple things on the file menu. We do have a command if we want to mail a drawing. We can send an email. It'll automatically open up our Outlook or our email program and generate a DWG to be sent out from what we have on the screen. We do have a bunch of import and export functions in IntelliCAD where we can import different files, whether they be drawings, DXFs, DWFs, DWTs, DGNs, and Collada files. And we can also export to those formats as well. All right, so again, just looking at these menus, they're a little bit different than the CARLSON menus. If you have IntelliCAD and you haven't already looked at them, you may want to take a quick peek and see some of the functions that are in here. They have a layer tools drop-down. A lot of these commands are also available in the CARLSON survey or civil and so on. Some of the names are a little bit different. In CARLSON, it's layer isolate or isolate layer, and then it's layer restore. They actually have the word unisolate, so kind of matching the Autodesk terminology. Layers on, layer freeze, all your different layer commands are in here. Again, under the tools, we have that IntelliCAD Explorer where normally I think of the layer dialog box, so I always type LA, but I could explore layer states or line types or text styles, and it'll bring up that same IntelliCAD Explorer for any of these options that you open up. Spelling, draw order, and so on. So it's again very, very similar to the Autodesk product, just a different name. Some of the commands work a little bit differently, but you should feel pretty comfortable moving over to IntelliCAD at this point. With this version 8.1, there's very, very few things that you can't do that you could do in the past, maybe with an Autodesk product. And one other thing that I'm going to go back to model space here. There's a command on here that I show to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't understand or don't know about it. So it's a command called Quick Selection. It's actually on the Properties window here. Looks like a little funnel with a lightning bolt. And when I choose that command, it actually allows me to search my drawing, okay, for a certain type of entity. All right, so maybe I want to find a certain type of polyline or a 3D polyline or a piece of text or just a line, any of these objects that are currently in the drawing. And I'll just go to polyline and I can say find any polyline that matches any of these conditions. All right, so maybe I want to find one that has a color equal to magenta. And when I say OK, well, okay, of course, picked one, it didn't find something. Sorry, let me go back. Let me just pick polyline. I'm going to go ahead and say, instead of by color, I'm going to say select all the polylines. And now what happened? It found 21 polylines in my drawing. So I can search through and find objects by color, by layer, by line type, just by entity type. And then I can perform functions on them that if I want to change anything. So in the properties window, maybe I want to make all the polylines yellow for some reason. Don't know why I'd want to do that, but I could. Or I could change the layer of all the property lines or the line type that they have, line type scale, anything, any of the properties. The quick select allows me to find objects. Sometimes I want to delete an object, right? And I might pan around my drawing looking for a particular object to delete, and then I find out I missed one. Well, I could actually search for it here under quick select, and I'm almost guaranteed I'll get all of them selected, and then I can just hit the delete key or the erase command. So it's a really nice function. It also helps me find things that are hidden in the drawing. Sometimes there's hidden blocks. I know coming from Land Desktop to CARLSON, there's typically a block in the Land Desktop drawings that used to link back to the project. If you want to clean those out, you don't see them in the drawing, but Quick Select will allow you to find a block by that name. Then I can just hit the delete key and it'll be gone. I could also do it through the IntelliCAD Explorer where I find the block. If I go to the blocks and I pick the block, whatever it may be, and right click and delete, so that'll work as well. I think we're kind of running short on time, so I think